As a military brat, we moved around the country, so I got to see a lot of different teams and a lot of different ballparks, but I fell in love with Fenway Park. When we moved here in 1981, we started to take our children to Fenway Park every summer. And after so many years of doing that, I realized, geez, with this property here, wouldn't it be cool to build a replica of Fenway Park in our backyard so we could enjoy it more frequently? I have 4 brothers, and we used to always go out in the backyard and play wiffle ball, and I fell in love with that game, and then grew into playing baseball, Little League, and high school and college baseball. It's been a great life being around the game. When we built Little Fenway, I wanted it to be visually appealing such that somebody that was familiar with Fenway Park would look at it and say, wow, it has the key characteristics of Fenway Park. We oriented the field the same way it's oriented in Boston so that you have that sun in the late afternoon in right field. When I first started thinking about this idea, I have a good friend by the name of Bill Livingstone, and he's a diehard Red Sox fan, and I knew that he would think it was a great idea. So I took a napkin and I drew this design up on a napkin, and I took it to work, and over coffee, I showed him the idea, and he just thought it was great. And I knew if Bill was on board that, number one, I had a big fan of the project, and number two, he's a really good construction guy, so he would help with building it. So he became the chief engineer. And then I got a handful of other folks that also thought it was a good idea. And that's really all I needed to get started, was just about 5 or 6 guys that were supportive, because I found that when I talked to different people, they usually came in either very excited, thinking that this was the coolest idea they ever heard of, or they thought I was crazy.
Like several of his friends, I thought Pat was crazy when he asked us to go. And I was one of many of his friends. They got here 15 years ago and started building Fenway Park.
Well, since I've known Pat, I heard that he was building it. I knew a lot of the people that helped him build it, and I actually thought they were crazy. I really did. I couldn't quite picture it. I didn't know why, a quarter replica, why? And then I ran into him at the local baseball game, and he was one of those guys handing out tickets, and I said, that's what's going on. He just loves baseball.
In 2001, we had scheduled a game versus the local Little League team, and then 9/11 hit, and we thought that that game would have to be postponed. But one of the parents said, oh, let's show these kids that life goes on. So we changed the event from a recognition event to a fundraiser for the New York disaster relief efforts. And everybody that came brought at least $1, and we raised $1,400. And it was at that point that I realized that this field could be used for a lot more than just backyard fun for friends and neighbors.
I think this place is special because he made this at first for his love of baseball, but then he grew it because he realized it could do something bigger.
When we first built this field, this was a bunch of friends of Pat that's going to build a field to have some fun. And we did that. But soon after that, we made these fields to be benefit of charities, and that is the most satisfying piece of it.
The popularity of the fields grew so rapidly that by 2006 and 2007, I realized that in order for us to raise as much money as we could for charity, we needed another field. And that's where we decided to go with Wrigley Field, called Little Wrigley. Then that year, we doubled the amount of fundraising we were able to do. As I'm out here working on the fields, it gives me a lot of time to think and reflect on what would be a nice addition to the field. Because I think for the folks that come to these fields, when they come back, it's always nice for them to see, wow, there's something new. So when we were thinking about the third field, and it was really driven by the same reason the second field was driven, is that charity was growing enormously. We had raised nearly $3 million for various charities. So in coming up with a third field, we really didn't have a strong contender of the major league parks, but I had been out to Dyersville, Iowa, in Field of Dreams, and felt that of any fields, Field of Dreams and the field that was created by the farmer there in the movie was something that I think represented a little bit about what we were trying to do here in Vermont.
Everyone at one time or another has played wiffle ball. I always tell everybody when I come up here, I'm 14 years old. That's when I used to always play wiffle ball. It's great to have that, to feel young and play young and compete young.
When I was a kid, I played wiffle ball. I watched my kids all play wiffle ball. Now I'm watching my grandkids play wiffle ball.
I call it the great equalizer because everybody can play. It's just, I think, the best American backyard game you can ever think of. Each day I think about how I never want to take it for granted, how special this place is. Probably the one word that describes it the best is magic.